Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie begins with Frank Moses waking up in the morning. He is overjoyed when he receives his pension check, and calls his pension administration representative, Sarah. They conclude the call, and Frank reads the book she mentioned on the call. He wakes up early that night, and when he gets down, armed men are pursuing him around his residence. However, he manages to surprise and eliminate them. After fending them off, he sets up a trap in the kitchen. He goes down to get some cash and weapons. Suddenly, his trap sets off, and his house is shelled with gunfire. Mercenaries enter, and he welcomes them warmly, dispatching them one by one. Frank then visits Sarah and scares her. She starts yelling, and he tries to quiet her, explaining that someone is attempting to kill them. She asks why someone would want to harm her, and he responds because they have overheard their phone calls. He ties her up, and gets in the car. Next, a killer is preparing something, before suddenly approaching a stranger and killing him. His name is William Cooper, and he meets a woman outside, who tells him he has a new target. Cooper learns that his target is a retired CIA analyst. Frank and Sarah arrive at a motel in New Orleans, where he handcuffs Sarah to a bed. He claims to be from the CIA, but she is skeptical. Moving to a man named Joe. Frank enters his house unexpectedly, and informs Joe that he was attacked, and shows him some fingers. Joe makes a call and informs Frank that the people who hit him also killed a New York Times reporter named Stephanie Chang. Cooper meanwhile is going through Frank's documents, and discovers a pension check. Simultaneously, Sarah frees herself, and Cooper sees her phone dialing 911. Soon, a cop tells Sarah that he can take her home. However, he injects her with something. Frank emerges out of nowhere to help her and steal the police car. A car collides with them, and Frank valiantly rushes out to confront the attacker, Cooper. Frank manages to get the upper hand, and drives away. Over the radio, he alerts police that a suspect is driving a black SUV. He sets up a trap that Cooper walks right into, and the cops arrive to arrest him. Sarah awakens in New York City, and thanks him for saving her. Minutes later, they meet Stephanie Chang's mother, who shows them a card with mysterious numbers, that she received on the day Stephanie died. Frank inquires about Stephanie's college attendance. Following that, he informs Sarah that the numerals represent a classification for Asian literature. They discover a book with a note inside. It has a list of names, almost all of whom have recently died under mysterious circumstances, but they notice one man, Joe, who isn't. He makes a phone call, only to hear that the man has been killed. Next, Cooper meets his boss at the CIA, who informs him that he needs to meet a records keeper. They pull out Frank's files, and everything is blacked out. The records keeper tells him that Frank was one of the most effective black ops agents the CIA ever had. Back to Frank, informing Sarah that they must locate Marvin Boggs, who is also on the list. They board a motorboat, and when they arrive at what looks to be a deserted location, Marvin pops out of nowhere. The man brings the duo to his hideout. Marvin goes to examine his files, after Frank stops him and hands him the list of dead people. He discovers that 5 of the people on the list were in Guatemala in 1981. A community was apparently demolished there, and they were entrusted with making it appear as if it never happened. Later, Sarah informs them that a man named Singer on the list, who flew the mission, will be at the air freight terminal tomorrow. The next day, the trio is on their way to the airport. When they meet Singer, he reveals that a reporter inquired about Guatemala, but he didn't say anything. Frank informs him that everyone from Guatemala has died, except for them. Marvin then spots a helicopter, and suddenly Singer gets shot, by Cooper's orders. The group flees, but a strange woman appears and shoots at them. They break open Marvin's pig and begin firing at the enemy. The woman appears, brandishing an RPG, and shoots at them. Marvin walks out after the gunfire, and the two engage in a standoff. He kills her with his gun, hitting the next rocket-propelled grenade. Cooper is upset, and the 3 of them manage to flee. In the car, Marvin tells them that there is only one place they can go to find out why they are being attacked. Frank enters on his own in a Russian embassy, and as he approaches the door, he's apprehended by soldiers. He meets a Russian guy, Ivan, and they raise a glass in toast. Soon, Frank informs him that he is going to break into the CIA, and that he requires his assistance. Ivan adds that he cannot assist him, but when Frank offers him a favor, Ivan cannot refuse. Next, Sarah is pleased and gets to accompany them. They get in, but Sarah drops her contact lens in the elevator, to avoid a security check. The alarm goes off, and as soldiers arrive, Sarah convinces them to assist in the search. The troops let them go once Frank put it on and had it authenticated. He then presses a button, and they are transported to a secret floor. Frank opens the door by hitting the wall. Henry, the record keeper, is delighted to see him. When Frank inquires about the Guatemala files, Henry assists him, telling him that a guy, Cooper, came down looking for his file. Later, Frank finds Cooper and they start fighting, all while Sarah is waiting in the coffee shop. Frank inquires about Cooper's training with Kordesky, which he verifies. He says that he trained Kordesky, and dislocates Cooper's arm. Frank attempts to flee, but is shot in the shoulder. He activates the fire alarm, grabs Sarah, and walks to a nearby room to combine chemicals in a bucket. Cooper and another man watch Frank's explosion shortly after the two leave. Sarah dupes a firefighter into assisting Frank, who is bleeding, and while disguised, Frank sneaks past guards hunting for him, and the two go out to an ambulance. They see Marvin with a gun to his head, and Joe opens the door, making a joke about Marvin, and they flee. Sarah is concerned since Frank is still bleeding, and Frank insists that they travel to Eagle's Nest. Once they arrive, Frank notices a woman, Victoria, in the house. Victoria introduces herself, and inquires if he is coming to murder her. When Frank says no, she tends to his bullet wound. Later, Joe joins them and mentions that there's someone named Dunning, on the list, who is still alive, a gangster that the CIA is sheltering. Frank suggests they pay him a visit, and Victoria agrees. Joe expresses his delight that the band is reuniting. Cooper is checking on his family at home, when his employer calls to inform him that Frank has a new target. The team arrives disguised at Dunning's house, and Victoria notices the CIA spying on him in the woods. Dunning and Joe go inside a soundproof chamber, to conduct their business without being heard by the CIA. However, as they continue conversing, there is a tap on the door, and Dunning answers it, assuming it is one of his guards, only to be met by Frank, who knocks him unconscious. Outside, Sarah discusses Frank, and Victoria says she was once in love with an agent, but she was in MI6, and he wasn't, and one day she was told to kill him, to prove her commitment. She wound up firing 3 shots into his chest. Inside, Dunning inquires about their identity, and they respond that they were the ones that cleaned up his mess in Guatemala. They take up tools and inquire as to who he assisted in escaping from Guatemala. Scared, Dunning responds, he sent out a young lieutenant, the son of the guy who is now vice president. They inquire about the New York Times reporter, and he informs them she called him twice, prompting him to contact the vice president, who is now attempting to clean up his history of mass killing of innocent villagers in Guatemala. Victoria abruptly informs them that they have been blown. Agents surround the location as Cooper enters. Dunning is knocked out by Joe, and the phone rings, and it's Cooper ordering them to give up and come out. Cooper doesn't believe Frank when he says the vice president authorized the hits on them to cover up war crimes. But when Frank asks rhetorically how he knew he'd find them at Dunning's house, Cooper assures him that no one would shoot them, and that he will personally ensure that he gets to testify. Victoria claims that agents are everywhere, but she can cover them in the woods if they are distracted. Joe says that someone will have to make the difficult decision, and Frank hugs him, and says it has been an honor. Cooper urges every agent to hold their fire, as someone walks out. Despite his orders, an agent shoots the man, making Cooper enraged and bewildered. Cooper rushes and notices that it isn't Frank who appeared. Frank and Marvin flee, and Victoria covers for them, before she and Sarah flee as well. Sarah soon trips, collapses, and is kidnapped by agents. Victoria finds the others and warns them Sarah has been abducted by the CIA. Ivan emerges out of nowhere in a car, surprising them all. Later, the team raises a glass to Joe, and Victoria declares that they must find a method to expose the vice president's war crimes. Marvin starts talking about torturing Sarah if they don't, and Frank storms out. Victoria calls Marvin an idiot, and Ivan enters to speak with Frank. He shows Frank 3 bullet wounds in his chest, and says the love of his life previously shot him. He tells Frank that when he awoke, he knew she loved him, or else it would have been in his head, and that people do insane things for love. Cooper receives a call from Frank as Sarah is being interrogated. Frank informs him that anything he values can be taken from him. Cooper becomes terrified when he tries to track the call to his own house. Frank threatens him, saying that if he hurts Sarah, his family will suffer, and he intends to kill the vice president. Cooper's home is visited by CIA agents, and when Cooper arrives, he discovers the list of dead persons and the Guatemala file in his living room. When he returns to the CIA, he asks Sarah about the file, to which she responds that they found it in the building's secret records repository, and that Frank will devour him for lunch. Cooper informs his supervisor that he will be required to assist the Secret Service in defending the vice president. Frank tells Marvin that he stored a few toys away just in case, and Marvin remarks that the vice president will appreciate this. Cooper assists the Secret Service at a fundraising event, and the team is planning to assassinate the vice president. While the vice president delivers his speech, Ivan takes Victoria for a dance, telling her that her radiance almost makes him speechless. The music stops, and Ivan goes to work, strolling around the room, spraying some liquid. Victoria uses special jewelry to secure a door, before going to meet Marvin. Ivan cries out loudly that he smells gas, and sets off the fire alarm. The vice president and Secret Service are unable to depart by another door. They get into their automobiles and begin driving, but Victoria shoots at them, and completely destroys their vehicles. While Cooper is attempting to reach them, Ivan enters an elevator, picks up a pen, and detonates a device in the vice president's backup car, which has just arrived. The Secret Service returns the vice president inside, all while Cooper gains access to the heavy machine gun, which is now unmanned. Meanwhile, Victoria, with the assistance of Marvin, stops the Secret Service once more. As the Secret Service flees with the VP, Marvin remarks that the Secret Service used to be tougher. They try to flee, but are fired at, and Victoria is injured. Marvin uses smoke grenades to create a distraction, and they flee. She tells him she's no longer useful, but becomes trapped and hears the police closing in on her. Ivan emerges out of nowhere, assisting her in opening the door. Victoria says she loves him, and he responds he knows. Outside, the VP and Secret Service notice Marvin sprinting towards them, wearing a suicide vest. They begin to run, and the VP gets into the presidential car as it appears. Cooper appears to be yelling at the driver to stop, but he is ignored. Minutes later, the driver turns around to see Frank tasing them. When Frank reveals that he was in Guatemala and saw what he did, the vice president begins to cry. Frank contacts Cooper and tells him he has 15 minutes to get Sarah to a nearby power plant, or he will murder the vice president. Cooper informs his supervisor of their whereabouts, and requests to notify the Secret Service. Cooper arrives and tells Frank that it's over, and Frank replies that they'll see. A limousine comes, and Cooper's employer, Sarah, and Dunning step out, but no Secret Service personnel appear. Dunning shoots the vice president, as Cooper wonders what is going on. Dunning responds to Frank's statement that Sarah is free, saying he will have to trade his life for hers. He tells Sarah that he tore up all those checks just to talk to her, and she says she knows. Dunning instructs Cooper to handcuff Frank, which he does, but believing both his boss and Dunning to be dishonest, he hands Frank the key. Dunning declares the world will learn that Frank murdered the vice president and Sarah. But then Frank begins going towards them. Cooper shoots his corrupt employer, then everyone else, and Frank suffocates Dunning. The squad emerges from the shadows, and Frank embraces Sarah. Cooper thanks Frank and says he will take care of everything. Marvin suddenly shoots an already dead man and asks everyone if they want pancakes. They are thrilled in the car, because no one is after them anymore, but Ivan reminds Frank that he did him a favor. Marvin can't believe he did Ivan a favor, and Ivan explains that it's just a minor nuclear problem in Moldova. When Sarah asks if she may go along too, Frank says okay, and the two kiss. Frank and Marvin are then seen fleeing Moldovan troops with a stolen nuclear device. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out.